Welcome everyone to our Tuesday night chat. I'm Kelly Wilkins, your host at the Myself Reliance Winda Community Connections. And so we're here every Tuesday night. If this is the first time that you're jumping on a Tuesday night call, we've been doing this for about nearly 20 months now. And we have been talking about all different topics of self-reliance with really great speakers. And so every week we are here, rain, hail, or shine. So it's really great to have you on. And before I introduce our lovely speaker tonight, Monique from Brainwise Learning. How are you, Monique?
I'm very well, Kelly. How are you?
Excellent. So good to have you here. I just wanted to announce a few events that are coming up. The first one that you want to know is this Friday, we have Jana Holman. She does the secret formula for plentiful plants, and she's in WA, coming to us on Zoom at 5:30 WA time, 7:30 New South Wales time. It is the most awesome workshop online for how to have flourishing plants that just grow amazing fruit or veg, whatever you want to grow. She just knows how to grow things. And so she's such a ball of fun as well. So it's a really good, entertaining Friday night. I recommend jumping on for that. You'll get heaps of learning out of that. And so register on the website, myselfreliance.com.au. Then for the school holidays in New South Wales on Monday, the 3rd of July, we have a meat preservation with Atta in Rouse Hill. So that is an awesome day. Nothing to bring, just go on the website. You can find out the details there. Take home a jar of meat that's fully organic and mRNA free, all the good stuff. And so that's a really great day out. Big drum roll. We have the summit coming up. So put aside the 17th right through to the 28th of July, 2 speakers a day, one at 12 o'clock, one at 8 p.m. on all different topics of self-reliance. We did this last year in July. It's a great winter fix on how to get all connections with lots of community, lots of great speakers, lots connecting to the experts so that you can have the everything you need to know at your fingertips. The early bird special runs until the 30th of June, so don't miss that. And if you are in Sydney or near Sydney, then there is a VIP in-person after party on the 29th of July. So it's all happening here. You can have it online, you can have it in person, you can connect and get to know each other here or go meet up. But this is where it's all at. So without further ado, we're going to hand over to Monique from Brainwise Learning. And Monique, we found each other recently.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, thanks to Sherry.
Yeah, that's right. And
Yes.
Monique came along to our expo and exhibited at our expo that was at the end of April. And so Monique has a very particular skill set in the area of learning. And so Monique, thank you for being here tonight. I'm going to hand over to you.
Oh, thank you, Kelly. Thank you so much. I wanted to start with the reason why I wanted to do this talk, and that is to encourage a lot of mums out there. There are a lot of mums that have found incredible ways to solve the problems that they come across, whether it's just with normal day-to-day parenting, or whether it's in disabilities, or whether it's like with me with learning challenges. There are some incredible mums out there finding fantastic solutions, and they're able to find these gaps for people and present something really worthwhile and really valid. And it gives mums like me, so I struggled a lot as my son was struggling. It gives...
and I'm sure there's lots of dads out there too that have done amazing
right.
things. But
of definitely, and yes,
but you can relate to the mums, right?
But it's it's very personal, because I worried so much about my son with his learning challenges. I didn't know whether he was going to be able to drive. I didn't know whether he was going to be able to, were his choices going to be so limited. And it was lovely to find the solutions that I did, but it was a lot of hard work. So please, can I encourage any mums out there who are finding their way through all of that, and get out there and bring your solutions to the market, because people need them, and it gives people a lot of hope. So it was very, very difficult for me to step up as somebody who can offer solutions. So I'm not sure if this happens to everybody, but it certainly happened to me. As the learning challenges were becoming more and more, as they seemed to be getting more and more as my son was getting older. And that was because of the complexity in the curriculum, the complexity in the social, being able to get along with everybody. These things were not going well. They were just getting worse and worse as he was getting older. And that really weighed very heavily on me. No matter what I tried to do, it never seemed to help. I remember spending days on my knees in prayer, thinking, why do I have to send him to this horrible place at school where he gets so bullied, and he's just not appreciated for the joyous fellow that he was, and it was really, really tough, and it weighed very heavily on me, to the point where over time, so I have eczema, and my skin got really, really bad with all the stress of it all. I was covered head to toe in eczema, and there's nothing worse than being itchy day and night all over. It was a horrible feeling. But I couldn't help him. So I would take him for assessments. I would take him to speech therapy. I would take him here. I would take him there. And things helped to some degree, but not enough. Do you know what I mean? He still struggled. We went through behavioural optometry. We went through integrative doctors who would prescribe certain diets and certain vitamins and this and that. And they all helped to some degree, but never really much. It wasn't until he was in year 6, I came across a book called The Brain That Changes Itself. It's written by Dr. Norman Doidge. And it talked about the latest brain research. And once I read that book and understood the concept of, oh my gosh, we've never really thought about what goes on in the brain, and that we can improve it. We always used to think that a brain, pretty much when it was an adult, was fixed. You might be able to do something if there was a child, if the brain was still young, but pretty much by the time you got to your early 20s, your brain was fixed, and that was all. What you had is what you were stuck with. But that has changed so much, and we know now that repetitive process that makes learning possible, and learning is really adapting to the demand that you're placing on your brain. It means adapting to the environment that you're in. This is why we speak English. This is how we have adapted to our environment. This is why we read the way we do. It's learning is actually an amazing process that relies so much on repetition. So once I understood all the concepts in that book, I thought there was a chapter in there that talked about something called auditory processing disorder. And then I came to realize so I put my son on the program, and he had some wonderful improvements. So specifically his speech. So he used to kind of mix up a lot of syllables and things. So he would, one of those kids that would say hopsital instead of hospital. But he would say those sort of things quite frequently. And while my husband and I thought it was really cute, when he was still saying this in year 6, we thought, oh, he's going to get even more bullied in high school if he keeps with that speech pattern. So it was wonderful that that was improved. And the story is quite complex, because it would be lovely to say that from there on everything was fine and he went to high school and became a scholar. Well, no, it didn't. It did not work out that way. Even though his auditory processing skills were improved, I had underestimated the impact of all that bullying over the years. And he still believed that he was someone that deserved to be bullied, if that makes sense. So in high school, he didn't have a good time because the bullies didn't really want to give up bullying him either. So once that pattern was set in primary school, he had to live with that. And we ended up changing high schools and COVID came along. He was already working by that stage, so he left school in year 10. And he just, sorry, I get a bit emotional. I just need to gather myself, I'm sorry. So he,
it's still
along.
fresh for you,
I'm
Monique.
so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm working on this. I'm growing. I'm getting better as I go. But COVID came along and he lost his job, and it took a long while still for him to recover. But in the meantime, I discovered from that time that he was at home, while he was relaxed, he's actually a beautiful communicator. He has become very eloquent at expressing his thoughts. And while he didn't want to learn through school, he was watching amazing videos, YouTube videos on everything from running a business to NLP to he liked watching those sorts of videos where they're creating things on Photoshop and how they do it and all of that. And he was learning the most incredible things. And I realized what an incredible communicator he had become, which is lovely to see. So he's still working on his confidence, and he's almost there. He's going to be starting his own business, which he gave me the idea for the business. So what happened was, after his skills were improved, I went to work with the speech pathologist that had brought this program to Australia. So it's an online program that that a student does at home. They do it 5 days a week. So again, it's relying on that repetition that neuroplasticity needs to grow. And so this program, sorry, I'm losing my place. My apologies.
That's all right. You're fine. You can take your time. Take your time to breathe.
Yeah. So when I worked with the speech pathologist, I realized that there were so many children having this problem, and I started learning an awful lot about learning challenges. The auditory processing disorder is a big part of the challenges that people with autism or ADHD or dyslexia, even dyspraxia, or the language side of dyspraxia. The auditory processing disorder is part of the same spectrum. So the amazing thing about the program, so the program itself is called Fast for Word. And what it does is provide a lot of repetition with processing and sequencing of sound, as I was talking about before. So the students, when they get on, and students can be any age, mostly children, but I have worked with an elderly lady last year, and she was recovering. She wanted to recover her language function after having a stroke. So this is that repetition of listening to all those things and actually engaging with those sounds in specific ways puts a demand on the brain's neural pathways to improve all those auditory processing skills. It's actually quite a complex process, learning. There's a lot of memory involved, there's attention, there's different types of memory. There's long-term, short-term working memory, episodic memory. There's an awful lot going on, and this is where the wonderful world of neuroscience is really starting to shed light. on what is actually going on inside our brains. Yes, and it's even affecting things like stroke therapy. So in the olden days, when someone had a stroke, they would say, say your left hand went dead, that they would say, well, you can't use that anymore. But what we're finding out now is that with very slow, incremental, and a lot of repetitive movements, there's a good chance we can get something back. And that's changing a lot of brain injury therapy and so on. So this is the same thing that's happening with the with learning challenges and auditory processing, especially when it comes to something like dyslexia. A lot of people used to think, oh, well, I've got dyslexia, I'm stuck with dyslexia. But no, if we can actually improve the pathways that are making that match between a sound and a letter, then we can improve their ability to read quite well. It's really quite incredible. Bringing this out in the open. So you can see I'm quite bumbly when I talk and all sorts of things. It's actually, I've come a long way. So when my son was struggling with learning, there was a belief system that I bought into as well. It's, it's like, oh, this is the way things are and there's nothing that I can do about it. And we just have to learn to live with it. And there's a lot of mums out there that are stuck in that way of thinking. And this is why I wanted to step up and do something more visible to help them, because many of them are waiting for pediatrician appointments. They're waiting on speech therapy waiting lists. And this is something that you can do in the meantime while you're waiting for all that to happen. Like, I wouldn't say don't go to a speech therapist, and I would never say don't get an assessment if you didn't want to. But this is something that you can do to improve things. So even children, and the spectrum of learning difficulties is quite intense. It's quite a big scale. I have a problem with my left and right. I've always had that. I still, when I go to set a table, I need to sit there with a knife and fork and actually, so that's not really a learning challenge. Yet I've been challenged by that my whole life. And it's no wonder that my son has a variation of this, and that sort of thing is actually so common. Nobody wants to talk about it. But that sort of thing is so common. When I'm working with a family, mum will say, oh, I'm starting to recognise the problems I had, or my husband spoke about similar challenges when they were young, and so on. It's in the old days, we kind of soldiered on with it a bit, or we made choices, that reflected what our abilities were. But the idea that we can actually improve these challenges is incredible, and it's worth getting up there and speaking about. So before I alluded to the speech pathologist that I worked with, that was in Linfield, which is on Sydney's North Shore. And I worked there for about 3-4 years. And it became apparent to me that I wanted to bring this out to Greater Western Sydney. I mean, the kids of Western Sydney deserved something like this, and there wasn't anything like it. So I eventually, with a lot of encouragement from that speech pathologist, so there was a fellow there who was quite a good business fellow as well, because they'd kind of separated the business from the speech pathologist a bit to work with this program. And he encouraged me. He said, look, he said, what can we do to help you? And I thought, well, I don't know anything about running a business, really. Do you think I really should be doing this? And he said, yes. He said, we can see it, and we want to do our best to support you. So, it has been really, really, really wonderful. I've gone from being somebody who, just pushed a shopping trolley around a shopping centre, really. I didn't really know what else to do with my life back then, to someone with, I've developed a very deep mission and a very deep purpose for getting this out to as many people as possible. And there are hurdles on the way, big hurdles, because I don't know if you can tell, but my imposter syndrome is enormous, because I often think, how can, just a mum, and I say that in inverted commas because I don't believe that anymore, because mums are the most amazing people. But if I think of me back then, I think, how can someone like me step up and talk about neuroscience or learning challenges?
So
When
Monique, are you the first one to bring this program to Australia?
No. So that was the speech pathologist. So she actually did that 20 years ago. It's been around for 20 years because it comes from America. It's from a big neuroscientist sort of corporation that they've firmed. But I was the one that brought it out to Western Sydney, because it wasn't getting there. Sitting with the speech pathologist in North Sydney or Lindfield, it was all very well that the kids were getting it there, but our kids needed it. And I knew that I could deliver something more affordable, because I wasn't running a big office. So I always planned it to be basically a home-based business. And the big plan is, and I'm so happy to put this out there, is that I would love to train other mums like me to facilitate this program and grow it in their own communities, and thereby improving, what we can deliver to the community. I mean,
that's definitely what I can hear. I can hear that, that you've created this and you've set the model for it. So if you can teach others to do the same, then this can spread across the country. And why shouldn't it? Because there's people with these needs everywhere.
That's
this
right.
it's so common what you've described, dyslexia and reading concerns right from young, right through all ages. And people with brain injury from accidents. So many ways that we can help people who, like you said, think that this is the way that it's going to be, but actually you can retrain the brain, and that's phenomenal.
It's huge, that the hope that comes from that. I mean, I have a YouTube clip that I send to a lot of people, and it's about a little boy who was born in England. He would be about 12 now. His name is Noah, and he was basically born with 5% of a brain. So he had spina bifida, and he had the type where the water enters the brain. So there was a lot of water in there, and a brain couldn't fully grow. Now, they're not entirely sure whether the brain was actually squashed or, but when they took a photo of his brain, there was only 5% there. And because his parents, see, in the old days, when such a baby was born, they would have taken very gentle care of it, of course, fed it and so on, but not got it up and getting it moving. And so these parents, just out of instinct, really, they didn't really know what they were doing. They just wanted to get, they used to massage him a lot. They would move his limbs, and they'd move the brain. When they took another scan of his brain, there was 85% of a brain there. And of course, being a baby, being very young, there's a lot of BDNF, which is the brain chemical that makes neurons really grow. But it's just an incredible story, and they were actually told to abort the baby, which is just unbelievably sad, because he's the most incredibly beautiful boy. I mean, he's not walking, but you can see he's just a ray of sunshine to everybody around him. He's lovely, and he does so much. They were told that he would never do anything. And there he is. He's actually talking, smiling, laughing, and being the joke of, giving jokes. He's telling jokes. He's
beautiful.
He's right into it. Yeah. And there's many other stories. There's people who have had hemispherectomies, where they've had to have a whole hemisphere of their brain removed, and their prognosis is not very good at all. But if they've been under the care of a doctor who's understood neuroplasticity, and they've been willing, because it's really hard work. It's not, it's not a miracle that just happens. It takes a lot of hard work. But they're functioning in society. They've got jobs. They're answering phones. They're preparing their own meals and all sorts of things. It's just, it's marvelous to see.
Now, you said that because going to a speech pathologist would be very expensive,
Mm.
and you found a way to make this affordable. How does your program work, and how do you work with the parent?
Okay, so most of the time a parent will find me either on social media or however they find me. And when we start working together, I sign them up to the program. I give them some growth mindset coaching. So the growth mindset is the one thing that's really helped me on my journey. So that it's the idea that if you're saying to yourself, "I can't do this," you're changing it to "I can't do this yet," and it introduces that lovely possibility that growth is possible. It's a whole lot more complicated than that, but that's the simplest way of explaining it. So my journey has been very helpful because of the growth mindset, and it wouldn't have been possible without that. So the thing about the growth mindset coaching, as well as the program, because the program is very repetitive, and children, especially if they've already been struggling at school, are a bit resistant to sitting down for the 30 minutes 5 days a week that they need to. But when we can coach that growth mindset, and we can increase their perseverance, change the way they're talking to themselves, modeling at home, which is better than just saying, "Oh, just think more positively, darling." It doesn't quite work that way. But when we can model all of that together, and when we can start to acknowledge the effort that goes into their work rather than the results they're getting all the time, then they can persevere longer on the program and get more benefits from it. So I've got different packages. So I'm calling the two together Learn Aerobics. I thought that was a pretty cool name. And so it's usually 3 months is the average that it takes to see some results, but some children will be on it longer. The program itself adapts to the student. So if they're struggling at a particular frequency and they need more practice with that, they'll basically stay there until the neurons connect, and then they can move on. So if you have two siblings, for example, that start at the same time, they might finish at different times because it's adapting to them. And then I'll call mum or dad or grandma, and we'll talk about the growth mindset coaching and how that's going, and how that's working to increase their perseverance. And hopefully by the end of it, the family has taken away the ability to develop a whole bunch of new skills because of that growth mindset thinking. I'll give you an example of some of the exercises they do. One exercise is, and I think this is actually the backbone of things, it's about sequencing. So they'll listen to a whole bunch of beeps and they have to put them in the right order, but they have to do it probably thousands of times, depending on them, because the students who don't have a problem with this particular skill, they'll breeze right through it. But if the child is struggling in this area, then they'll keep doing it until they get it right and move on to the next sort of frequency. Another one is where it's kind of like a game of memory, but it's with sound. So they have to listen to sounds like ba, 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 and they have to pick that from da, la, sa, ka. So they have to hold that in their memory for a while they're listening to all the other sounds, and be able to pick that when it comes up. So again, it sounds very basic, but these are the skills that we take for granted and that these learners are struggling with, and that's why they have problems with reading and spelling, because they're not able to make those connections to the letters. Yeah. What's another one they do? There's another one with working memory that exercises their working memory. So it'll give them a whole lot of instructions. They'll start with things like put the red square next to the green circle, and then it will get more complex from there. And again, that's working that ability to remember, because the whole thing about neuroscience is putting that demand on the brain, and then the brain will do it.
I can imagine this would be good for aging as well, because just that whole, they say as you get older, so that you retain your memory, just learn something you've never learned before, like pick
That's
up an
it.
instrument or do something. So this would be really good training just to keep
That's it.
from like pre-dementia patients, I would think.
That's true. I've also got a headset. So I'm also bringing together what I call neurotech. And one of the neurotech devices it's called a forebrain. And what it does, it's a headset that uses bone conduction. And I don't know if the audience knows, but the bone conducts sound a whole lot better than air does through our ears. And when we put this device on, our skull is the most amazing conductor of sound. And it just helps the student to process everything really well, that auditory vocal loop that we have. And that's getting some really good results with elderly, especially with the language function. Yeah.
Lovely.
And I use that headset in different ways. So language learners will use it so they can develop their accent a lot better. I use it when I'm rehearsing for my presentations. And I use it, I'm learning to sing in French because that's just something I like to do. And it really helps with the accent side of things. Actors and singers do love it too. For that reason, they can hear themselves a whole lot better.
Yeah, I was going to say singers would really love it.
Yeah.
So when we get a package, then do we have contact with you, or we
Yes.
get the package and then
through that growth mindset coaching? So I like to keep in touch. So you buy different levels. You can buy weekly support or weekly coaching, fortnightly and monthly. And then I've got a whole bunch of different products as well. But I kind of didn't want to kind of sell my program too much tonight. I was sort of, what I'm wanting to do is just talk about how difficult it can be to start something like this, because it's out of the ordinary, and that it's filling that gap that a lot of mums become aware of, when you're going through things with your children, and society is just not quite covering the things that you need. And yeah, that's my big purpose tonight, was to really talk about that. And
that's all right. I'm asking the questions, and you might have the audience want to know the answer too. So if I don't ask, so that's okay. Just one other thing that you said too, because that positive reinforcement would come in as you kind of complete those tasks, and I guess move on to the next one.
The amazing thing happens as the children or usually mostly children, but obviously adults as well, as they go through that process, their confidence, their approach to learning changes. So when children are resisting learning, it's because they're trying to protect themselves from something painful. It's not working, especially when at that time when they're learning to read, they start to realize that they're not the same as the other kids. And they start to become resistant, and in their mind they're saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, all that sort of stuff. And that can go down a really terrible path. It can ruin the mental health of somebody, especially if there's bullying and things going on top of it. So it's lovely to see when they have been working on these exercises, when that whole auditory processing network is more efficient, as the program does, and they've been opened up to learning through the growth mindset, and they're wanting to develop more new skills. It's that confidence. They feel it as this lovely confidence, and when that confidence improves, it's amazing to see. I was working with a 7-year-old student earlier this year, and the teacher from his previous year didn't recognise him when he came into the classroom, when she came into his classroom. And she said to the teacher, is that so-and-so? And the teacher said, yes, that's it. She said, I can't believe it. It doesn't look like the same boy. So, that's the difference it can make.
Yeah, having that confidence, because then the personality can exude.
Yeah. And it that's what stops people from participating. If you can imagine, there are many adults out there who have, for whatever reason, it's often bad teaching instruction at school, you know, that just didn't give enough at this certain level, and it's just become a whole big reading problem. But they don't want to participate in society, or they don't want to participate in things because they don't feel worthy. You know, their feeling is, I'm done because I didn't learn this. And that's really sad. That's just not how it should be.
So at this point, we're probably about 80% of the way through. So we will open it up to the audience and see if there's any questions from our audience. We do have a question from Joshua, who, because this program is really unique and we do want to know more about it, tell us, how do we access more information, and just outline some of the costs for us so that we know what we're talking about.
Okay, so you head to the website, so it's www.brainwiselearning.com.au, and I can put those notes up there later. I can do that, yeah.
Yeah.
And so cost-wise, it's usually a bit less than speech therapy. So my most expensive program for 3 months is about $1,500. But that's with the weekly coaching. Most people will take the one underneath, which is about $1,300. And that's, again, that's 3 months, but with fortnightly coaching. And there's also monthly available as well.
There you go. That's awesome. And that's, yeah, because when you think about all those sessions that you would have to do at the speech therapist, that usually sets people back a small car.
Yeah, well, yeah. It varies a lot, but I believe it's about $180 is an average price. But the good thing about this is that you don't have to go to an office. You know, you don't have to drag all the kids. If you've got, you know, a few kids, you don't have to drag them to the, I mean, but I do recommend speech pathology, because I do actually work with quite a few speech pathologists, you know, especially while they're on the waiting list. Because if we can improve those auditory processing skills while they're on the waiting list, well, then the work of the speech pathologist is done much faster. And same with tutoring as well. The sort of kids that haven't gotten any benefit from tutoring, once they go through this program, it's often because they've had the auditory processing issues. And once we've got that improved, then they start to make the gains in their tutoring again.
Very good. Any more questions? Steve, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? It's been really eye-opening and made a lot of sense tonight. So okay.
Sorry, what was the website? Hi.
Oh, hi. It's www.brainwiselearning.com.au. Shall I put it in the chat?
Yes.
I just found it. This is why I was asking. I was about to put it in the chat for Joshua.
Oh, thank you.
I'm the admin here.
So good. Yeah,
Thank
so good.
much. I've got some lovely testimonials. So, and what I love about the whole thing is that it's about the improvement. It's not about the sort of perfection. And I'm very careful not to advertise as, you know, we're going to, you know, when you put the kids in the graduation gowns and there's blue ribbons and trophies everywhere. Yeah, no, I'd rather celebrate the progress that we all make. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Oh, great question from Josh. He said, are there different levels you can start depending on the age and the ability of the person? Or does everyone start at the same level?
I've got one for primary school and one for high school and older, but it's basically the same sort of things, but with different graphics. So it's just so it doesn't look too junior for the older ones. But yeah, no, because the program itself adapts to them.
You can move through it as quickly as you are able to.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, and everybody moves through differently. So a question I get asked a lot is, when is my child going to finish? And I don't know, because they may hit a challenge, what I call a challenge, at a certain frequency, and they might need longer to develop that. So
do some people get through quickly then? They
If they get through too quickly, then they didn't need it. Yeah. Yeah. So I actually love it when they challenge, and we learn to celebrate those challenges, because that's where the work of the neural pathways is actually growing.
Yeah, wow. Very good. Well, I don't know if I have any more questions, if anyone else wants to throw in a question or two, but this has been absolutely fantastic. And I've been asking lots of questions before tonight.
I hope I answered them for you.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And you know, the thing that I love too is that the combine with the mindset work, right?
Yes.
The mindfulness. And so tell us more about that side of things, because you've partnered up with what's the company called? Positive
Big Life Journal.
Yes.
Yes, yes, I love their stuff. So I came across their stuff while I was at the speech pathologist. And because I was supporting a lot of other families on the program then. And
has anyone not heard of Big Life Journal? Is anyone? That's what it's called, in Big Life Journal. Yeah.
Big Life Journal. And they make the most wonderful growth mindset resources for adults as well as children. But it's all about they make realistic affirmations. So you won't get an affirmation like, I am the best in the world, blah, blah, blah. They'll say something like, I can do this for 5 minutes more. Or, you know, my brain is stronger when I exercise it. Or things like that. I you know, it's a lot more realistic, I find, because a lot of the children, they're pretty skeptical these days. And if you give them an affirmation like, I am Superman, they just think, yeah, whatever. but if
that's
you,
right, you can't lie to yourself. It has to be
that's
in the realms of you know, stretching what you believe to be true.
That's right. But if they can say something like, let's see how far I can take this, it kind of makes you feel like, yeah, let's go. So yeah, so
does that come with the program? Yes.
I specifically put it in because I think the two go so well together. And sometimes, depending on the resistance of the child, I might do some more growth mindset work first, and then put them on the program. So yeah, and sometimes I've also got a program that is specifically about attention. It's a program for 3 to 10-year-olds, and sometimes I might put them on that first before going to the learn aerobics, because if they can't pay attention, then they're not going to get the benefit from the learn aerobics. So we might need to develop that skill first. So that's why it's quite a consultative process before we start.
So do you have something that weans children off of addiction to computers?
It's kind of, it's a bit weird because I'm actually telling them to jump on a computer. So.
Well, see but that's directed learning. We like that. Yeah, maybe that's perfect, because it's ticking their boxes of having that screen time, but in a way that's actually benefiting them, not you know, I call it, my kids you know, it's brain dead if they too long.
In a way, it zombifies. It really does. But there are studies that have come out that have shown the benefits of gaming, and there's studies that have come out on the other side as well. So it's the thing I like to keep in mind, and that's understanding the neuroplasticity, and this is one of the things I love to bring through with my coaching, is that anything you repeat is what gets wired into your brain. That's how good habits develop. That's how bad habits develop. You know, so here's a really good example. I hope people don't mind this. It's a bit of a rough example. In North Korea, the people are not taught the language for I am, or I am suffering. They're not taught that sort of language. So I can't begin to imagine the dissonance between how they explain how they're feeling, because I know a lot of them are very, very hungry. I've read a story from a lady called Yeonmi Park, who escaped North Korea. And she said that it's actually criminal what they're doing there. It's worse than criminal. It's horrible, because if people cannot explain how they feel, that's not human. You know, that they're doing something very terrible over there. But this is, see, neuroplasticity, we use it to wire our bad habits as much as our good. It's the choice we make as to what we repeat, but it's whatever's repeated will get wired in. So it's always something to keep in mind when you're making your choices.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's habits, reforming habits. Obviously Josh is on the website and he's asked, how does the neurotech program work?
Oh, that's the forebrain. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes, sure can.
I've got a little video there that you can see. There. Okay, is everyone ready?
Yes, good. Go for it. Well, there's the headset.
I can put a link directly to it in the chat.
At least we can see what it looks like, so I can go there. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, that's on the it's Brainwise Learning, and there's a little tab at the top that says forebrain.
Perfect. Okay, lovely. We'll share that.
I'm sorry, guys.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, thank you. Great questions, Joshua. I'm really impressed with how you were able to catch on there. It's been amazing to learn all about that and to realize that there's something out there for anyone and everyone who wants to work on that, expanding our brain and that neuroplasticity, and be able to expect more of us than what we thought was possible, right? So I love working in that area, and I do a lot of meditation on and visualization around that very thing, so that we can expand possibilities. So
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're wiring your brain every time you meditate. You know, you're building a beautiful brain.
I wonder how much of it is transferable though, because if you've been able to
we actually insist on those 2 days off. So a lot of parents kind of get a bit excited and they want to do their children to do it 7 days a week. And we said, no, we have to have the 2 days off, because we want other traffic to flow on the neurons that are growing for that transferability. Yeah, it's actually a really important part of the process.
Rest is always an important part of growth.
Sleep is so important.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Monique, for presenting that to us tonight. And it's so encouraging. It's so encouraging. And I have been in that place, and not that long ago, where my confidence was, you know, kicking myself under the table every time I got up to speak, thinking I'm going to do great at this, and then went, oh, I've just made an embarrassment of myself.
But we celebrate the progress, right?
We have, yes. And like, if you know, we can sit here saying that how far we've come, then it's possible for anyone, right? So
that's right, exactly.
Yeah.
I love it.
Love it. Beautiful. Well, don't forget to jump on the summit, everyone. It's only less than 3 weeks around the corner from the first day. The summit starts on the 17th of July. So don't miss that. I'm actually giving the first talk of the summit, called How to Overcome Obstacles with Ease and Grace.
Oh, lovely.
So
I'm listening to that one. Thank you.
Lovely. All right. Well, have a great week, and we'll see you all back here next time at Tuesday at 8 p.m. in Old Sydney Town, and 6 p.m. over in the WA, and see you on Friday night, if not before. All right.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, Monique. Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome to the My Self-Reliance Expo. It is a wet, rainy day in April, but we are having the best time.
just doing the chocolate wheel. Actually, no chocolate prizes, but spin the wheel for $1. Win prize up to $50. Fantastic. All benefits going to my self-reliance.
And 3. We have taken the best of the speakers that we have on our Kawinda Community Connections every Tuesday night, and we brought them all together in this one place where people can experience all the good things that people have been sharing with us about. Ladies, and I have a little gift for you.
I'm Natalie, and I just made these homemade candles just the last couple of days.
It is an absolute winner of the day, despite the rain.
Reporting for Team Kelly here. She does amazing work. Loving it.
This is just the beginning for my self-reliance and bringing community together, because we're all about learning, education, workshops, highlighting people's skills and talents so that we can all learn from each other and cooperate in a way that, you know, we maybe haven't seen before. And certainly people who didn't think that they had skills to share are really shining in this space. So we're going to go from the expo. July we'll have a summit, so that'll be 20 speakers over 10 days, and then come spring in October we're actually going to do a 2-day festival. So that will be another opportunity to bring people out to the sunshine and get amongst it and really envelop it all over 2 days. So we're so thrilled that you can be here and enjoy the fun. And if you missed it, we hope that you come again to the next one. We look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much.